Sometime in 2022, HumAngle received a tip from a source letting us know that babies were being stolen from displaced mothers in Bama, northeastern Nigeria. It was an utterly unprecedented and unfathomable act of cruelty that needed to be documented. And so I got on a plane and I flew down to Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. From there, I got on a commercial vehicle to take me to Bama. The road to Bama is not safe. In fact, there is a very strict curfew on vehicles plying that road. The road opens at 9 a.m. and closes at 4 p.m. Anyone caught on the road outside this time is on their own. When I got to the IDP camp, I began to conduct my interviews. It was there that I met Amina Bukar and Yakura Ghana, both women in their early 20s whose babies had been stolen. It was a deeply tragic story, and as it unraveled through long interviews, time passed. And before I knew it, it was past 4 p.m. and the road had been closed. There was no way for me to go back to Maiduguri, the capital city, that day as was originally planned. The question emerged as to where I would pass the night. Word had already gone round that there was a certain journalist in town. And as I sat in a tent belonging to one of the women leaders, I heard someone asking outside if it was true that a journalist was around and what was she looking for. It was not safe for me to leave the camp. In case you haven't put it together by now, this is the story of how I came to spend the night in an IDP camp. The climate at the time was incredibly hot and the tents were made of tarpaulin, and so it was impossible for wind to penetrate the tents. Eventually, I had to sleep outside the tents under the starry evening sky, accompanied by more mosquitoes than I have ever seen in my life. I will admit to you now that as I looked up into the sky and took this picture, I wondered, despite the security precautions my organization, HumAngle, had taken, if harm would come to me before morning. No harm came to me. This is just one example of the lengths HumAngle journalists go to be able to bring you important stories. We are willing to go these lengths, but we need the support of our readers and partners to be able to do so. Your donation goes directly into the vital work that we do.
Hawa is right. We go extra mile to bring you these stories. One time, as Southern Operation Lead for HumAngle, I delved into the harrowing world of a ruthless trafficking gang operating in Agbado Crossing in southwest Nigeria, luring Cameroonians with promises of multinational job offers. The gang forces its victims into scamming others, trapping them in a cycle of exploitation and despair. Posing as a job seeker, I approached the gang's camp at Obe area in Lagos Ogun border, despite warning from different peoples that there are dangers ahead. At the gates, two FT security guards blocked the entry. One, Philip Igwe. He identified himself as QNet manager. He revealed the operation's nature, a commission-based direct selling and e-commerce requiring at least $200 per capita. New victims, 4 Cameroonians with bags in hands, were welcomed by Igwe, who made a fake phone call promising to send dollars to a customer. The more I tried to uncover their atrocities, the more people familiar with their deadly operations warned me. In fact, another representative, Anthony Chibuzo, initially touted QNet multinational's business, but later admitted that he was a victim forced to deceive others, and he advised me to leave the environment to avoid harm from superiors. Interestingly, we told a daring story despite physical challenges and dangers. The investigation revealed the gang's tactics of luring Cameroonians into exploitative scams and made QNet disown the criminal groups to avoid future cross-border crimes. At another instance, I had to follow some deadly cultists into their hideouts in our quest to discuss the role of guns in the widespread violence and loss of lives in Nigeria. I was left alone in the bush for nearly 20 minutes as my sources did not show up as promised. My senses told me to run, but to where? No answer. I checked my phone to possibly drop my location for relatives and editors, but there was no network. These are some of the risks we take at HumAngle to uncover critical stories, promote justice and awareness.
And then there was a time I traveled to Pew in southern Borno to investigate artisanal mining. Prior to my trip, no comprehensive reporting had been done around the issue. After a long day on the road, I arrived in Gunda, a mining community. I spoke to miners and community members, and they told me their reality and how poverty and lack of jobs compelled them into the trade, despite obvious environmental damage and government restrictions. They also described the mining process. But listening was not enough. To tell their story honestly, I needed to step into their world. So, I followed one miner into a pit. There was no protective gear, neither for him nor for me. I trusted luck, just as they do every day. Inside, I watched the process unfold. Then, suddenly, a heavy rock being pulled out above us slipped. Moments earlier, the miner had urged me to step deeper into the cave. I obeyed. The rock crashed down exactly where I had been standing. It was a close call, too close. My heart pounded in my throat, and for a moment, I could only think, this is how easily it ends. When my editors found out, they were furious. They scolded me, sanctioned me, called it reckless. Maybe it was. But inside our pit, I had seen what these men live with every day. The gamble of survival. And that is the story I carried back. That is the length I went to get that story.
Telling stories that matter in Northeast Nigeria is very challenging because of the many humanitarian crises affecting the region. You see hunger, conflict, displacement, war crimes, terror, violence, attacks, killings, abduction, the impact of climate change, and the damaging effect of poor accountability in both public and private sectors. It is undoubtedly depressing. I often carry the emotional burden of listening to harrowing human experiences and witnessing distressing realities during my reporting trips. With limited resources, I still go far to meet people whose voices are unheard, driven by the belief that giving them the opportunity to tell their stories is simply important, and it is a noble thing to do.
And there are also the risks that come with traveling through Nigeria's north-central roads. In 2024, I traveled to the hard-to-reach villages in Plateau to uncover the growing ethnic violence, ruining lives and properties in the state. It was during the Christmas massacre, which had become a matter of national and international interest. Dozens of journalists had traveled to the state before me for the same storyline, but none provided an accurate narrative of the roots of the crisis, which was what I set out to do. During the field reporting, I saw the need to visit ghost communities sacked by warring parties. I had been to Mango, the hotspot of the ethno-religious violence, and came out safely. In Bokos, I found myself in a terrain devoid of human existence in many villages I visited. When we approached a displaced Fulani settlement in Bokos, one man who had refused to leave the place in the middle of the deadly crisis appeared to halt suddenly, shooting sporadically into the air for about 3 minutes. He stopped after I waved at him to signal that I meant no harm. He then pointed his dang gun at me, threatening to shoot me unless I identified myself. Even after identifying myself as a HumAngle journalist, it took over 2 hours in the ghost village for him to speak to me. He was the first human I would see in about 7 villages I had visited, I imagined the bullets he had fired in the air could have been aimed at me, as the man confessed he had killed a considerable number of enemies, especially people of the opposing ethnic group. He said he thought I was one of them and was ready to bring me down. It was an unforgettable experience, but it was also necessary in order to bring you that important story. Bringing important conflict stories to the fore is at the heart of our mission at HumAngle.
So, how can you be a part of this mission? You can do so by donating to us. You can do so by reading and sharing our work. And you can do so by buying merch from us. You will notice as I poured hot water into this mug that the inscription on it changed to reveal something else. It is called a magic mug, and it is one of the many things you can purchase from us as a way to support us. All you have to do is send us a message and someone from the team will respond to you immediately. Also, did I mention you can actually donate to us? All you have to do is go to support.humananglemedia.com. Thank you for being a part of our work.